When I was growing up, I never really was trying to pursue a career, quote unquote, in music, just because I grew up in a really small town. And from where I came from, like music and movies and all that, that wasn't something that happened where we were. It wasn't I want to pursue this. It was just, I love music, I love movies. And it really started with, I had a friend in high school who was in a band, and they were looking for somebody to play keyboard. I volunteered, and I was a sophomore in high school, so I didn't think it was going to be any bit of a commitment. But then that rolled into a 20 plus year career, and that rolled into doing the film stuff. I scored a film called God's Waiting Room, which was filmed primarily in Florida. Actually, we just went up to Tribeca this year with that, and it did really well. Our lead actor won Best Actor. I'm super proud of it. It was a largely Florida crew, which is awesome. I've got another film coming out next year as well called Peace in the Valley, directed by Tyler Riggs, who also directed God's Waiting Room. That's, I believe, also going to be coming out 2022. And just thankful to be able to work with great directors and collaborators in general. And my band, Under Oath, has a record coming out in January. What excites me and my favorite part are probably the same thing, and it's that initial, talking to a director or talking to the guys in my band and just deciding what do we want to do? What do we want this to sound like? Those first couple weeks on any project are the most exploratory, and for me, the most fun, because that's where I really get to, just sit down and be like, what do I want this to sound like? Experimenting with random weird instruments, stretching things and mangling things and just trying to find a cool sound. Ideally, I would have a lot of back and forth with the director. I've worked with some directors who are super removed from the music process. More so they just look at it as, that's the thing that you're gonna do, and I'm gonna be over here working on the edit and doing all this stuff. But then I've worked with other directors who are very hands-on and very, involved, and I love that. Being able to have just a dialogue about here's how this scene I want it to make me feel, and here's how the music that you're writing does make me feel, and just having that back and forth. I may approach it from a certain way, but then talking to, whether it's director or sound designer or producer, whoever, it just takes more of an outside ear to be able to be like, oh well, what if you did this instead? Or hey, this thing that you did over here is great, what if you just moved it here instead? And I think that some of my favorite things in anything I've done have spawned from those little hey, why don't you do this instead? And I'm just like, oh yeah, so. One of the big things that I love about making music with my band is there's literally no set thing. It's literally just sitting down and saying, what do I want to write? What is coming out? Is it going to be something slow and dark, or something big and fast and heavy? And it's literally just whatever, we're feeling at that point. But writing for film is way different, because you have to write for a specific mood, for a specific scene. You can't have a wrong note. You can't have something that even hints towards something that is incorrect, because it'll stick out like a sore thumb, and you definitely don't want that. Video games is similar, but I feel like with video games there's a little more leeway to experiment with mood and with instrumentation, because the music isn't as a center focus. But I guess I'll say with the games that I've worked on so far, in my experience, and seeing from other people in this industry, the people that are the most successful and, in my mind, the most talented are the ones that are creating because they just feel like they have to create. And if someone takes notice and they're able to do it as a profession, that's amazing. But even if they didn't get noticed, they would still just be doing it. If they're not acting on a film, they'd be acting in a community theater. Or if they were not composing for a film, they'd be just scoring to silent things on YouTube, that sort of thing. If you've got a film that is set in Florida, I think it automatically just has a very cool vibe. I was talking to a friend about that the other day on a podcast. I was saying, I don't know what it is about Florida, but just immediately when you have it set here, it's got an interesting vibe. For me, living in Florida, working with a Florida crew is great, because there is a proximity there. If I want to go visit set or do any of that stuff, but there's just a different vibe than there is in an Atlanta or an LA, and it's just completely my vibe, like super hardworking people that are, that recognize what we have here that a lot of people might not, and are just wanting to like get that out. And I think that that's just, yeah, that's huge.